Welcome to part 2 of my Duel in the Sun review. This part of the review will focus a lot more on the history, the background of all the sweat that went into making this blockbuster. So Duel in the Sun, as I said, came out in 1946, and it was so far ahead of its time. It was given the name Lust in the Dust and Hump in the Sump by journalists because of basically the sexual themes of the film. Lute being a rapist and just them swimming naked together. All these things went into making the film just a shocker, basically. It was so shocking that the Catholic Church basically condemned it, and they said, how can any Catholic, quote, go to this film with a free conscience? And it's interesting because Jennifer Jones, she was a devout Catholic. She went to a Catholic school in my hometown, Montecasino, actually. And I'll get into some of that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I want to talk about Jennifer Jones and David O. Selznick. David O. Selznick obviously was the producer of this film. O. Selznick produced Gone with the Wind, of course. And Selznick, he really wanted to make a film bigger and better than Gone with the Wind. He considered this to be the Western Gone with the Wind, basically. I'll read one of his interesting quotes that he says. So this is a man talking to Selznick about making Duel in the Sun. Why must it be bigger? You'll just be adding to the cost and you won't be contributing to the picture. David smiled. You know what my problem is? I know that when I die, the stories will read, David O. Selznick, producer of Gone with the Wind, died today. I'm determined to leave them something else to write about. And really, there is quite a bit written about Duel in the Sun, so I would say that he accomplished that. Now, Selznick basically, he put a ton of work into this film. He micromanaged everything. He was on set all the time. He was paying close attention to what Jennifer Jones wore, how her makeup looked. Jennifer Jones had to come in so early in the morning. It took like 2 or 3 hours to put her makeup on every day. He has said that no female actress had worked and just been beaten down more than Jennifer Jones at that point because she had to sweat so much. She had to wear all that makeup and just out in the Arizona sun. But let me get to some more interesting things. So during the film, Selznick, he was married. And Jennifer Jones, she had just gotten off of a divorce from Robert Walker. And I have something sad and interesting about Robert Walker and Jennifer Jones to read later, but let me get to... Basically, Jennifer Jones and David O. Selznick, they had an affair together during the making of the film. And Irene, who was Selznick's wife during that point, she would say, Jennifer hadn't caused our situation, the divorce. If it hadn't been her, it would have been someone else. So she basically... And she was surprised. She knew that David would go around sleeping with tons of women all the time. But she was concerned because she was unaware of Jennifer Jones and Selznick having an affair. So she says that she wasn't aware. A lot of people say that she knew because Selznick and Jennifer Jones were seen around New York. They went to parties together holding hands. They were seen in a taxi together, doing whatever, making out. So Jennifer Jones basically gave in to Selznick, his power and making her a big star. They would eventually marry each other, but Selznick put so much emotion into the film. It was basically a love letter to Jennifer Jones making it. He just was obsessed. So I want to read from old Greg Peck's biography now. Let me talk about the whole Robert Walker thing. Robert Walker, if you don't know him, he was in Strangers on a Train. He was married to Jennifer Jones, and Jennifer Jones and Robert Walker got a divorce eventually. And apparently when Robert Walker, this is after he saw Duel in the Sun with his buddy. And this is what his buddy said. He said that he was so sickened that he had to walk out. And Robert Walker said, "That bastard, that goddamn bastard, David Selznick." He was just so disheartened from seeing Duel in the Sun and what he had done to his beloved Jennifer Jones. And this might have led to more depression for Robert Walker, and because he died at a very young age in 1952. But let's see. So I have some interesting Gregory Peck quotes about the film that I definitely want to read. He said, Greg Peck said, "I never enjoyed any role better than I did in Duel in the Sun. You know, after my first pictures, I got the mantle of nobility flung around my shoulders. I didn't like it. But I'm gradually breaking that concept down, and I think Duel will finish it off. In that character, I don't have one redeeming quality, but he has a whale of a good time, does everything any man would want to do. Oh yes, he gets, spoiler alert, oh yes, he gets killed in the end, but that's just lasts a minute. He sure enjoys himself while he has life." And he's talking about Loot. Let's see, another Greg Peck quote. This is him talking about Loot, his character. "I'm a murderer, a rapist, a passer of bad checks, and at the end, my old poppy, Lionel Barrymore, in a wheelchair, looks after me affectionately and says, 'What a boy, what a boy.'" Yeah, it was so strange how Lionel Barrymore just loved Loot. But it's his son, so. Okay, and I have one more quote from Greg Peck, I believe. So another interesting thing was that Gregory Peck at the time, he was filming The Yearling. And if you've seen The Yearling, Greg Peck plays basically the opposite of Loot. He plays just a loving, affectionate father who has good morals and everything. So during filming of Duel in the Sun, he would go to Florida and play that character, and then he would go back to Arizona and film as Loot, just a terrible person. And this is what he said about that. "I'd get out of my southern cracker overalls and my southern accent and put on a cowboy suit and slide into my Texas drawl. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was frantic and fun." Okay. Actually, there's one more really good quote that I have to read. That he talks about his gunfight that he has with Charles Bickford. "I had to draw on Charlie Bickford and shoot him dead. There was just one small problem. He was a faster draw. Every time we shot the scene, Charlie plugged me first. The director kept pleading me to draw a little faster. 'I'm drawing as fast as I can,' I told him. So he turned to Charlie and instructed him to let me beat him to the draw, but Charlie growled, it wouldn't look right. Let Peck go and practice. So he had to shoot the scene 9 times before I outdrew him and he fell over dead. After the 9th take, the director shouted, 'Print that!' And I could hear the relief in his voice." Okay. So the director of the film was a man named King Vidor, or Vidor. I'll call him Vidor. I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly. He would eventually be replaced by William Dieterle, but that's because Vidor would quit. King quit because David O. Selznick would just stop butting in. It was to the point where he walked off, and I'll read about that. So during the filming of the death scene, the final scene where Lute and Pearl shoot each other dead, there wasn't any blood on them in the first time they filmed it. And Selznick said, "No, I want blood on them. I want them bruised and bloody." And Vidor was so angry because at this point they had been in the Arizona sun for too long. So this is what it says. King Vidor closed his script and rose from his director's chair. Quietly, he said to David, "You can take this picture and shove it up your, As the entire company stared in awed silence, Vidor walked to his limo, stepped inside, and he directed the driver to take him to Tucson. He took off in his limousine down that long road, down the Arizona desert, never to return. So Dieterle would come, and Dieterle filmed like the opening sequence where we see Pearl's father shoot her mother. So he did do that scene. The other thing I want to talk about is the music of the film, which was done by Dmitri Tiomkin. And a big part of the film, or a big thing that Selznick wanted, was for the music. He called it the Orgasm Theme. And this was the theme that played when, I believe, Lute rapes Pearl. So this is the conversation that Tiomkin and David O. Selznick had with each other. So he played him the different themes of the theme, the Desire theme. David said, "I love it, I love it. Now would you please whistle the Desire theme?" Again, the composer whistled, "Fine, fine, fine. Now the Orgasm theme." Tiomkin whistled, and David shook his head worriedly. "No, that isn't it. That's just not an orgasm." So then Tiomkin had to go back in the studio, work months, try to figure out what the Orgasm theme is going to be. He then played it for David. A few months later, when he walked in, David said, "I like it. Play it again." They played it. David said, "Play it again." At the end, David sighed and said, "Dimmy," for Tiomkin, "you're going to hate me for this, but it won't do. It's too beautiful." The Russian balanced between rage and despair. "Mr. Selznick, what is troubling you? What don't you like about it?" "I like it, but it isn't orgasm music. It's not stump. It's not the way I F." F being, "Mr. Selznick, you F your way, I F my way. To me, that is effing music." And at that, Selznick apparently burst out laughing, and they kept the theme. They kept Tiomkin's music, his Orgasm theme. So, a lot of people have compared this movie also to Howard Hughes' The Outlaw, because in The Outlaw he really shows a woman's breasts a lot, and we get a little bit of that with Jennifer Jones in this film. And it was, Jennifer Jones was worried how her Catholic nun back in Tulsa, basically her growing up mentor, would see herself, and this will be the last thing I read. She was worried how she would see her after watching the movie, especially since the Catholic Church wasn't too fond of it. So Selznick, he took it upon himself to write back to her nun, back to Sister Ursula. "I must frankly tell you that Jennifer has occasionally experienced a fear as to how you would react to her appearing in this type of violent love story. I have tried to reassure her. It has been a sore temptation to keep Jennifer only in very sweet parts, but in conflict with this has been my ambition that she should not forever be identified with one type of role. and that her great talent should have the free expression that is the privilege of an outstanding actress. In any event, when you see the picture, please see it through before forming any conclusions on this point, because I think you will agree that the story preaches a very moral lesson, and that, in effect, this gets down to the simple precept that the wages of sin are death. And then finally, we'll look at Joseph Cotten's autobiography and what he says about his character as Jess. This is him talking. David knew from the start that I did not want to appear in it, Duel in the Sun. It was only after this long memo to San Francisco and our subsequent telephone conversation that he beguiled me into playing the part, but I was never happy in the role of Jess. To relieve my boredom, David let me choose the most elegant wardrobe. I then proceeded to call myself Dressy Jessie. It caught on with the rest of the cast and provided diversion during many days and tucks in a long, colorless role for me. Joseph Cotten, he also had an affair during the making of the movie, so a lot of that stuff going on during the filming of Lust in the Dust. But so I'll end this mega review with saying if you stuck around for it, you really love Duel in the Sun and you wanted to learn about it. If you didn't stick around for all of it, then, well, you missed out. The movie made they spent $2 million just on exploiting the film. There are so many stories about what went into getting the movie across to the people of America. Go see this film. Weather balloons were used to drop, paper saying, go watch Duel in the Sun. And the film cost $4.5 million to make. So, it did it make money? It did in the end make a little bit of money. They kind of broke even on it, but hey, we got ourselves such a wonderful Western classic. It's interesting because Gregory Peck is in the Big Country too, and I consider these two films definitely top 5 best Westerns of all time. But thank you for sticking around. I'm Ian Patrick, and it was a long one, but have a good night, everyone.